everyone, and welcome back to the Bitch in My Brain podcast. My name is Josie. It is a pleasure to be with you. I'm a little nervous, but also open and willing to share this podcast episode. I want to invite you guys into a aspect of my healing journey that I am currently really working on, really focusing on, and that is inner child work. When I first started the coaching program, I was really nervous to do inner child work because I look back at some of the children of mine, and when I say, inner child work, it's really connecting to those past versions of yourself. I call them little Josies, so little Josies at each age, but I was really hesitant to connect with them because they had a lot of pain, they have a lot of sadness, and I didn't want to, bring it up. I didn't want to have to address it. But it really is inevitable when you're doing healing work because a lot of our behaviors, patterns, beliefs, and you've heard me say this a million times, but they all really stem back to our childhood and the experiences we had and ultimately what we made those experiences mean. So a lot comes up when you're doing inner child work. Not only, you're connecting to your previous self and feeling those emotions, but you're also feeling the emotions in, this version of you, the current version of you. So it can be a little intimidating, but I will attest to the fact that as you begin to do this work, there's a lot of freedom that comes from it. There's a lot of forgiveness and release. And so I feel like it's really important to share because I hope it, gets you guys thinking and pushes you towards, really healing some of these versions of yourself. So really what I want to do is kind of take you through the journey that I've been on doing inner child work and tell you what, steps I've taken, which versions of me that I have connected with, kind of where I started to where I'm at now. So like I kind of said, I was really nervous to meet the younger versions of myself. And it really hasn't been since the last 6 to 8 months that I've really had the confidence to start this work. It all started when I was in a meditation and I was trying to connect to the younger version of me. And who showed up was this 4-year-old little Josie. And she was cute as fuck, not to brag. She was cute. But really, she came up and I didn't really know what to do with her. I have, especially in the last, 10 years, actually no, honestly my entire life, I have never really felt that maternal calling. Like when I'm around little kids, I don't really know how to interact with them. Like I, will smile and be like, hi, you're so cute. But other than that, I don't know how to engage with kids. I don't know really what to say to make them laugh. And it's not that I don't want kids. Well, I want one kid. I don't think I want two. I want an only child that I can make sure is cool as fuck. I will do everything in my power to make sure they're not weird. But really, I'm struggling with feeling that maternal instinct. And so when little Josie showed up and she's 4 years old, I was like, holy shit, what do I do? What do I do? So ultimately, I saw myself just kind of sit down on the ground with her. And I was just playing with her. And it was really fun. And in a way, we were just kind of bonding, but I felt myself in more of this kind of like protective role, this very nurturing role, which were two emotions that I had really never felt in relation to kids or, being a mom. So I truly believe little Josie came down to kind of move me into that feminine, nourishing, nurturing mindset that I haven't really allowed myself to be. So little Josie, she was my first, and she is just the cutest little thing. I'll let you guys in on a little bit of a secret. I guess it's not really a secret, but I'll share with you kind of what my inner landscape looks like, which I will be a little bit picky because I do believe that space is very sacred. But when I drop down into my body, into my inner landscape, I am in the Wizard of Oz. Like, I am on the yellow brick road and I am moving towards Oz, which is, whatever Oz means. I don't know if it's abundance or happiness or joy. As you guys know, I can find all of that along the yellow brick road, but I have all of my little Josies with me. And the 4-year-old little Josie, she is on my hip, and we're walking down the yellow brick road. Then the next little Josie that came to me is 10 years old, and she is not happy. She's got a lot of trust issues. She doesn't really want to talk to me. She's very kind of sad and scared. There's a lot of heavy emotions around her. So when I connected with her, she was also one that I was like, okay, what do I do? Because this is a very intense connection we're having. But she wasn't really willing to talk. She was just kind of there, like said hello, how are you? And didn't want anything to do with me. So I really kind of let her be. And then the third little Josie that I connected with was my 17-year-old self. And we have like a cool aunt dynamic. And basically, we just kind of, we're on the same vibe, and she holds down the fort, the internal fort, while I am not there. But I was really struggling to connect to 10-year-old Josie, especially after having these really good connections with 4-year-old Josie and then 17-year-old Josie. And as I looked a little bit deeper at what those emotions were at that age, I realized that this version of me is probably the most sad, most angry, most frustrated version of me. And I really link this back to my experience at soccer, which you guys know has a lot of my trauma, as well as my relationship to adults. So soccer was pretty much my only priority all the way until I was like 16 when I quit. And it was always a complicated relationship because as much as I was surrounded by, my friends or my teammates, as well as some of, the coaches, I always felt really alone and misunderstood. And that really stems from my inability at that time to really be myself. I was a kind of goofy kid, lots of energy, and when it came to soccer, and I was, at practice as well as the games, they were all my, this is when I got to hang out with all my friends. So I was always really jazzed up, wanting to talk to them, wanting to kind of goof around. And that was very much not accepted. And when I would be myself and be goofy, there was always consequences that came with it. So my dad was my first soccer coach, and as much as I loved having him as my soccer coach, there was definitely a confusing dynamic that came along with it. My dad very much did not want to be the coach that showed favoritism for their daughter. And so what I experienced instead was the complete opposite. I think he was really overcompensating for it. And so a lot of the times, and my dad was my coach from like age 5 to age like 13, and then I had 2 more coaches after that. But when I would be messing around at practice, and really that like messing around and being goofy was my authentic self. But when I was like that at practice, I would always get like called out, and there was always a punishment that came from it. So if I was messing around, my dad would be like, okay, you're done, go run the entire complex. And I would be the only one that would have to do it. There would be other girls that I was goofing around with. However, they never had to join in on like the consequence. So I very much felt alone and singled out. And this also followed me into my other coaches, because when I was, kind of being playful, and I also was very outspoken. Like if I felt that something wasn't right, I definitely would bring it to their attention, which was my authentic self as well. But there was still always a consequence, whether that be, they bench me or don't start me. Like there was always punishment every time that I would be my authentic self at soccer practice. And I always thought of soccer as like fun. And I always played my best when I was having fun. So it was very confusing for me, because I was playing soccer, which I loved, and I was able to see all my friends, because I didn't really hang out with too many people outside of soccer. Like all my best friends were on my team. So it was really confusing, because I had all these people around me, but I felt so alone and misunderstood and frustrated as well, because I felt kind of singled out, because like I said, some of the other girls would be doing the same thing, but because it was me, it was different. And so when I connected to this little Josie, 10-year-old little Josie, she had all of those same feelings very much present in her. And so I really opened up the conversation with her, and I was just asked her, I said, what do you need? What can I give you right now that will be helpful? And she responded, and I had the visual. She was like, I want to go back to the soccer fields, and I want to scream at the top of my lungs and fucking rip up some grass and throw it. Like there was very much rage associated with her. And I honored that. I was like, you know what? If you need to go scream, then I will go scream on your behalf. If you need to rip up some grass, I got it. And I made the plans to go do that over the weekend, or 2 weekends ago. But I wasn't able to do it. Graduation party, my grandma was in town, yada, yada, yada. And so last week I continued to kind of connect to this little Josie and try to, make our relationship a little bit smoother or a little bit open. But she still, was having trust issues. And that also links back to the fact that when coaches would talk to me a certain way or adults would talk to me a certain way, I really had nowhere to go with it. I had no one that I could be like emotional around or open up and feel that comfort. So I have a lot of trust issues, because some of the adults that I expected to protect me never did, as well as my other teammates. There were a lot of really fucked up things that I had some of my teammates do that really, and this, this is not just age 10. This was, for a few years, especially as we got older. But I have a lot of trust issues because the people that I needed at certain times weren't there. So it also makes sense that, 10-year-old little Josie, she's still very hesitant. Even though I'm opening up to her and saying, I will give you whatever you need, you can trust in me, she's hesitant. So I was definitely still, a little bit persistent and kept connecting to her in my meditations. And then I had a coaching session where I really wanted to connect with her again. But I realized that probably the reason why she doesn't trust me completely is because I'm very timid about it, because I've done a lot of healing around my soccer experience and my relationships with adults. And I've also extended a lot of forgiveness to those adults and to those people. So the idea of having to reopen that wound because I've already given others forgiveness, I'm like, why would I want to go back to that? Like, I've already processed it. And Luz, who's my coach, she said, well, 28-year-old Josie may have forgiven, may be able to move on, but 10-year-old Josie has not forgiven and is still needing healing around this situation. And that really kind of blew my mind, because that's right. I mean, as much as an adult, the person I am right now, I just want to be like, okay, let's fix it and move on and be done with it. We don't have to feel those feelings. I can't do that, because there's a part of me that's still wounded, that no matter how much forgiveness I give as an adult, it's not good enough. And she deserves to feel that forgiveness and to be able to move on herself. So when I ended up connecting to her during our session, I found us back at the soccer fields, and the energy had completely shifted. And really it went from this rage and anger and frustration of, screaming and ripping up the grass to this desire to goof around and this desire to be playful on the soccer field, something that I was never really allowed to do. And she was like, I just want to play soccer with you. I just want to to mess around, to be goofy and not have any fear around it. And she also requested Oreos, which I thought was really cute, because I literally grew up on Oreos. I could eat like 2 rows at age 10, just after school, just dunk and eat. So it didn't surprise me that she asked for Oreos. And so I had that kind of little bit of a breakthrough, and I'm like, okay, so some of that anger has been released. Well, for 3 nights in a row after that, I had pretty much the same dream, but in different landscapes. And I was screaming, bawling at the top. Like, I was emotionally distraught in each of these dreams, just yelling, bawling, trying to get the attention of the other people in my dreams, and they were just not listening to me. And I woke up each morning like, holy fucking shit, that was intense. And so I started to obviously investigate a little bit more, and I decided to hop on ChatGPT and really try to figure out where these dreams are coming from, because as you know, our dreams are very much linked to our subconscious. So I'm like, there's something else going on here. And what came up was a lot of the times when we're, screaming and begging to be heard is our inner child searching for that as well. That pain was coming up of the hurt and sadness and frustration and trust issues that I had with people in my life. So I went down a whole entire rabbit hole. And then once I kind of had that information, I went to yoga. And at the end of yoga, I connected with her again. And I told her, I was just like, I know that was you. I know what you're asking of me. And I promise that you can trust me to help you feel better and to help heal this. And so that was very, very powerful. And it definitely opened up the door to healing my 10-year-old self, because I truly believe that once I'm able to really heal that version of me, I will be able to move on from things that have hurt me in the past more genuinely. Because I say, oh, I've forgiven them, I've extended forgiveness. Some of it is probably just my coping mechanism not to feel that anger or resentment towards that person. So there's definitely work to be done. But as I connect to each little Josie, I'm really creating this kind of wholeness within myself. And I've got my little family of Josies that I can at this age now protect, and they can trust me, and they know that I am working in their best interest and trying to make them feel the protection and understanding that I didn't have as a little kid, as a little girl. So it's definitely been very intense, but also very cathartic. And I felt a lot of release, and I felt a lot of softening as well. And now that I've connected to, the Josie that was really stubborn and didn't want to talk to me, I think I'm going to be a little less scared to talk to the other Josies that begin to join me. So I've got 3 Josies with me, 4-year-old, 10-year-old, and 17-year-old Josie. We are walking on the yellow brick road. I've also got some sheep behind me, which is so funny. Because if you've read The Alchemist, it'll make sense. But yeah, my inner landscape is very much the Wizard of Oz, with all my little children and my spirit animals and my sheep. So that's my inner world. That is really what I've been working on. It's been emotional, but in such a freeing way. And I really encourage you guys to begin to get curious around this work, because it is so important. And if you're truly, really looking to heal, this is a part of that journey. And now that I've connected with 10-year-old Josie, I'm going to tell people, I'm like, don't be scared, because once you get through a few of them, it'll all start to come together. So start small also. You don't have to connect to the biggest, baddest one of them all. Sometimes just saying, who wants to come talk to me right now? And taking the time in your meditation to open yourself up to meeting these new versions of yourself. So hopefully this didn't sound too woo-woo, but this is definitely rooted in science as well. So I really hope you consider it. And if you need any help or input or, some meditations you can use, don't be shy. Please reach out, because we all deserve it, both past versions of ourselves and the present version of ourselves. So I hope you have a wonderful week, and I will see you next time. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope this episode spoke to you, and I can't wait to continue to share so much more. If you're feeling called, please subscribe and leave a review so together we can reach even more women who deserve to live their best life. And you can follow me on social at The Bitch in My Brain as I share my journey and life in real time. I can't wait to see you bitches next week. Take care.